Hi, I'm Daniel and I'm Senor de Cozinha. Today we're making Piri Piri chicken. To start off, to marinate, I'm going to go ahead and just use a freezer bag. I think it's easier in this case for our chicken thighs to get everything marinated in here. So to start off, we are going to be using some bay leaves, and these are Turkish bay leaves. They're much more subtle than California bay leaves. So in this case, I'm using 4 of them. If you happen to be using California bay leaves, you can use 3 or even 2, depending how much of that flavor you want. And then we're going to add our seasoning. We have a lot of things in here. So we have allspice. That is not a seasoning with just a bunch of different spices. It's allspice berry. I put just about 1/16 of a teaspoon. In other words, just a pinch because it's very potent. The same with cloves. We also did about 1/16 of a teaspoon. And then we did half a teaspoon of coriander, cumin, and black pepper. And then for the salt, normally we do 1 teaspoon per pound. And this is about 1.5 pounds of chicken. However, we have a couple of salty ingredients, which I'm going to mention in just a bit. And for that reason, I'm actually just using 1 teaspoon of salt. And so always keep that in mind. When you're seasoning with salt, about 1 teaspoon per pound, unless other ingredients you're using are salty in themselves, then you want to always adjust that. And then we also have paprika. This is Portuguese paprika. I feel that it's much more potent and flavorful than the paprika you just might find at the store. If you cannot get Portuguese paprika, you can always use Spanish paprika or smoked paprika. So we're going to go ahead and add that in here, and that's 1 or half a tablespoon of paprika. So we have all of our seasoning, and next we're going to do our garlic. And so I took about 4 garlic cloves and I went ahead and chopped those up. So just go ahead and slide that in there. And then now we have our liquid. So we have 1 ounce of red wine vinegar. We have 8 ounces or 1 cup of Portuguese white wine. As always with cooking wine, you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you still want to get something that you like. So in this one, it's about $10 that I spent on it. It's a Portuguese white wine. I always like to use wine from the regions that I'm cooking. So if this was a French dish, I would use a French wine. It's a Portuguese dish, so I'm using Portuguese white wine. And then we also have in here a tablespoon of a massa de pimenta. And so that's essentially like a fermented Portuguese pepper with salt. That's not a common thing that you'll find at the store. So you might be able to find it online. I've seen it online. And so if you just shop around, I would go ahead and get that. And that's what actually is the really salty ingredient that I mentioned earlier. So that's why we're adjusting our salt. And so let's go ahead and pour that liquid in here. And now that we have everything in here, just give it a light shake. We're going to go ahead and slide in our chicken. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and put this in the fridge for 8 hours. And then we're going to throw it in the smoker. So until then. All right, so our chicken has been marinating for 8 hours. I went ahead and did the first step, which was smoking it. If you do not have a smoker and you just have a gas grill or a coal grill, that's fine. You would just skip the smoking step. So right now we're going to go ahead and just throw it on the grill. So this is chicken thigh. That's why I was able to smoke it. Had this been just chicken breast, because it doesn't have as much fat as chicken thigh, I do not recommend smoking it. That's something you would have to grill really quick, otherwise it would dry out. But since this is chicken thigh, we were able to smoke it. And now we're going to go ahead and throw it on high heat. I'm going to let it cook on one side so it gets a little charred, and then afterwards I'm going to come out, flip it over, and then at the end we're going to go ahead and add the sauce. Okay. So it's been on the grill for a while. It's almost done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add some Piri Piri hot sauce. So if you remember earlier in the video, I mentioned about having a couple of ingredients that had a little bit more salt. So the first one was massa de pimenta, sometimes called massa malagueta. The other one is the hot sauce. It doesn't have as much salt as the other ingredient, but it does still have some. So we're going to go ahead and just give it a nice light coat. And I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of them. And then afterwards, I'm going to flip it over, do another coat, and then we'll go ahead and pull it off and rest. All right, so we have our piri piri chicken. Normally, I would suggest pairing this with some French fries, but we're going to try to stay on the healthy side. So went ahead and just boiled some broccoli, sauteed it with a little bit of olive oil and garlic. Here we have some salad on the side. So to pair it with, we're going to go ahead and do this Portuguese white wine. It's from the Vinho region called Contacto. I personally am a red wine person myself, but always keep in mind what you're eating, what type of protein you're using, and how it's seasoned. So in this case, we're doing chicken. We want to do a white wine, something lighter, especially since it's got a little bit of spiciness to it. So I think this is a really good choice to go with. And so we're going to go ahead and put this together. And with that, bon appetit and saúde.